So as much as we love to follow a trend and have that new piece of item which is in vogue at that time, we always like to look at items which are timeless. So it's just as much as fashion goes with clothing, same goes with interiors, but it lasts a bit longer, thank God, because it gets expensive. We always try to aim to put items together that stand the test of time rather than ones that are just in trend in that moment. So here's number one, all white interiors. Although in the magazine it looks glossy and beautiful, the reality is maintaining it is a total pain. We like to always try and suggest use a neutral color palette instead of all white. White becomes cold and clinical, whereas a neutral palette becomes earthy and warm and inviting. So our aim would be, if you can see in a project that we did, we used the same color throughout the whole room, but we tried to use it in different shapes and textures. So for instance, in this lounge that we did, you can see that the curtain fabric had that very subtle sheen on it, but when you look up close, it actually had a lovely texture to it. This just adds a lot more movement in the room without it being overwhelming and tiring, so that in 10, 20, 30 years, you'll never get bored of that space. We tried to bring a bit of pattern in the voile curtains, if you can see, but because it's sheer, it's not overwhelming. It actually feels like there's a little bit of pattern, but it's not overtaking the room. All the sofas, all the furniture were the same fabric, and not only were they a very neutral tone and one color, but they made that room feel bigger. And so it's not a trend if everything is coordinating well together. It's actually something that we also love to say is timeless. Something that will always stand the test of time. Something you will never get bored of when you walk into a room. Notice how we used reflective wallpaper. It's the same tone, it's the same color of the room, but because it's a different movement in that space, rather than it feeling all one tone, it actually feels like there's a lot more depth into that room. If you can try and make your accessories also match, it goes a long way because it feels like that room has been thought of. It's not that you've just found items and plumped them down. You've really curated that space perfect to that room. In here we used a coffee table which was mirror. And what was great about mirror is it reflects the colors from the rug, from the curtains, from the sofa. And that color actually just goes onto the table. So you feel like that's also part of the scheme, when in fact it's a different material altogether, but it just makes that room feel bigger and more timeless. And that way, you're not following any trends, you're actually making that room feel one. Another interior design trend that will fail in real life is open shelving overload. If you look at this bookcase, it just looks chaotic. Like, it's giving me anxiety, to be honest. I don't know how people think that this would be a good option on showing all your books. It just becomes a cluttered space, dumping ground, an eyesore. And actually, I don't think this brings me any joy when I look at it. What we would always suggest, if you see a project that we did in Wimbledon, was this beautiful library. Our client had so many books, and they were luckily the most beautiful books I'd ever seen, all bounded and color coordinated. And what we tried to do is put them according to size, shape, color. That way, when they look into that room, not only does it feel like a book that they want to pick up, it looks stylish, it looks styled. We added a few of the accessories that they had collected from over their travels and over the years and put them all together. It just made it feel more personal. This becomes less of a trend and more of a room that you can actually use whilst being beautiful, aesthetically pleasing to the eye, practical, and also less cluttered. So you feel like that place isn't overwhelming when you look at it. We really try and advise trying to use colors where they all coordinate. That way, when you're looking at it, it feels very soothing to the eye rather than an eyesore. If you can scale back, you'd be surprised at how beautiful you can make a bookshelf look. But for all those people who have a lot of books and no storage, or only open storage, we would heavily avoid. Please try and get some sort of closed storage so that a lot of the books that you don't necessarily use every day can be hidden away. Another interior design trend that we don't tend to love is the impact on glossy, overwhelming, busy tiles in a bathroom. As much as they look great in that moment, how long will they look good for? For us, it is always about longevity. Think about how much it costs to remove those tiles if you ever get bored of them. The amount of building work costs, finding the new materials, the time it takes. It's just not fun. What we always try and advise is keep it neutral, keep the floor and the walls matching. That way, not only does the space feel bigger, it feels timeless. But don't get me wrong, we always love a little bit of a wow factor. So have a look at this bathroom we did for our client. They really wanted to feature wall tile in their bathroom. Our aim was to keep it neutral and very earthy so that when you come in, it feels like that spa space rather than that overwhelming, look at me, colors, patterns, etc. If you keep it neutral and match the floor and other walls together, then that room feels a lot more well thought out. If you can try and use large tiles rather than small tiles, this also makes all the lines that are on show, it makes the room feel bigger. So when you compare the two bathrooms, as much as I like the first one, which has that busy tile, I know in my heart, within 2 years, I would get fed up. So by using, for instance, a feature tile, which is a lot more neutral, it just goes a long way. It's something that you look forward to walk into every time you come in. It's also more fun to clean, where we've always find that when there's more joints in a space, the amount of dust that collects in those spaces becomes a bit of a pain. So a trend we always try and suggest is go for the larger tile that you can find. That way, it always makes the room feel bigger. And it's not so much a trend as much it is a lifestyle that you choose to create for yourself. Alternatively, if you still want that pop of color, notice this bathroom that we did for our client. We had a very small ensuite to work with. What we did was we used the same tiles on the wall and the floor so that the space felt bigger, and we also used large tiles. But in order to add that color in, we used brass as all the fittings for the tap, for the shower hose, you name it. And then the vanity had a lovely color on it. That way, it didn't feel like it was all monotonous. I felt like there was another depth to the room. As much as we like all one-tone color, this also looks beautiful. So it's always nice to mix and match, but we always suggest trying to put a vision board together, a mood board together, where all the items that you are going to select go in one space, and you can see, does this actually work? Or is it feeling already like an eyesore when I look at it just on my mood board? Another trend that tends to fail when it comes to interior design is oversized furniture in your room. Although if you go into a showroom, it can look really attractive and impressive, does it actually fit in your space? Notice in this place, they've designed it beautifully. The problem is that sofa is overtaking the whole room. What we would have suggested is use a narrower sofa. Make sure that the depth is less. Maybe even get legs underneath so that you can see the floor. Notice how in this project that we did, the room was actually really narrow. But when you see it now, because the furniture is wall hung, the sofa is off the floor, it actually feels wider than it actually is. Whereas when you look at the previous room, because you've blocked the flooring underneath, it feels tight. Even like walking around the table, you're actually going to always be squeezing through rather than feeling like you're gliding into your room and jumping onto the sofa. Even the coffee table they've used here, there's nothing wrong with it. But if we had used glass, you would have felt there was a lot more space. And also if you had a glass shelf underneath, you have a place to put some of your storage. So when trying to build your room up, try and see if that furniture fits in that space. We are very blessed. We get to use 3D software to double check everything fits to perfection and our spatial planning is on point. But for someone who doesn't have these benefits, use masking tape. Get the size of the sofa, get the size of the coffee table, and mask it out on the floor and see when you're walking around wherever that floor space is, how does that make you feel? Putting in too big of furniture in any room will mean that all the other things that you have in there will get limited or you'll have to compromise. So always try and focus on all the pieces in the room that are going to go in rather than just that one big bulky piece. And you'll be surprised at how that room will start to flow a lot more if you focus on it all coordinating rather than just that one piece that you find. What's nice is when you see the two room layouts, they're very similar, but which one feels wider? It's the one where the sofa is off the floor. It's the one where the glass table allowing you to see the floor from underneath. It's where the TV unit, or in this case, they've used a fireplace, but our TV unit is off the floor. There's more storage in ours, there's more seating in ours, there is more flow in ours, and that's what's important when trying to focus on trends. Just because you love the sofa, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to go for it because it doesn't fit with the rest of the furniture that you're putting in. Another interior design trend that will fail in real life is vanity spaces with no storage. So let's say in your bathroom, you have this beautiful vanity, but there's no drawer. Where does all your stuff go? I can't tell you the amount of times we've walked into our clients' homes and all their toiletries, understandably, are just loitered all over the bathroom sink. Where else is this supposed to go? So if you see one of our projects that we did, this was our client's cloakroom. It was very small, but we wanted to try and maximize storage where we could. We don't want it to be all closed storage where it becomes bulky, but at the same time, you need places to put your toilet paper, your extra toiletries, you name it. So in here you can see we did a drawer. We always try and avoid a drawer rather than a cupboard. Cupboards become a little bit more trickier to be accessible, and that way all their goods were able to be put inside there. And then we also did a beautiful shelving on the left-hand side where you can see their soap dispensers, their tissues, their toothpaste, their toothbrushes, and it's concealed but put together in a really nice way. When trying to make a room look its best, always think of the practicality as well, because as great as it looks in a showroom, they don't have any of the bits that we always need, our day-to-day things. So really focus on what items you're going to put in there and where will they go. When designing a space, it's really important to focus on style with practicality. I'm telling you, timelessness, functionality, all of this will pay off in the long haul. Focus on these things before buying that one piece that you saw on sale, and you'll be surprised at when everything comes together and coordinates, it will stand the test of time. If you like this video, please check out our video on 10 interior design tips in order to avoid if you hate cleaning.